Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the TriFasT PLC annual general meeting. Throughout this recorded meeting, attendees online will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just please simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting today. However, the company review all questions submitted online and provide responses where it's appropriate to do so. I'd now like to hand over to Company Secretary Christopher Morgan. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to our 2022 annual general meeting. Let me just briefly introduce myself. I'm Christopher Morgan. I'm the Company Secretary, and I joined in April of this year. So before we go to the formal business of the AGM, if I can just remind everyone of some housekeeping. I think some of you have already picked up on it already, but mobile phones, please, to silence if you may. No planned fire drills within the building, so if there is an alarm sounds, it's a fire alarm, please make your way through the door and behind you and turn left and through the exit to the external door. That's super, and the meeting place will be in the car park outside at the far side. We have a full board in attendance today, and if I can please introduce them for you. Our Chair, Jonathan Sherman, at the end, our Chief Executive Officer, Mark Belton, and our three independent non-executive directors, Clive Watson, Scott McMeekan, and Claire Bamforth. If I can now hand over to Mark, our Chief Executive, for a short update presentation from Mark ahead of the formal business of the annual general meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
No, thanks, Christopher, and good afternoon, everybody. Before, as Christopher said, we get into the formal proceedings, I would just like to run through a slide from our recent year-end presentation. Firstly, if we look at our purpose, to provide trusted reliability to our customers, suppliers, and our people. And this really has been at the core of what we've been doing since Mike Timms and Mike Roberts founded the business, which, can you believe it, is going to be 50 years next year. And never, ever has that trusted reliability been as so important as it is today. Throughout all of the global supply chain chaos, the conflicts, the material shortages, and the inflationary pressures, we have not let customers down, which has enabled us through that period to take market share. But none of this would be at all possible without the dedication and loyalty of all the teams around the world who constantly amaze me, coping with all of it on a daily basis. It's been incredible. And secondly, if we look at the investment cases now, I love this strapline. Our fasteners enable innovation today to build a better tomorrow. This really encapsulates the disruptive technologies within our market, enabling our engineers to work with customers, solving their problems, and in turn, growing our business. This nicely leads on to our ambitious growth strategy, which is to become a much bigger and more profitable company than we are today by increasing capacity into the business, taking market share, and increasing margins. And this can be achieved by the four strategic pillars, as you can see on the right. Engineering-led innovation, which I've just spoken about. Investing in organic growth, whether that be by CapEx or stock or resource to support the growth that we are seeing. Project Atlas and the benefits and the margin enhancements that will bring, and obviously selected strategic acquisitions. To support this, we have clear capital allocation policies, ensuring that we provide fair and balanced approach between risk, growth, and returns for all. And above all, we're focusing on the group's long-term sustainability, whether that is through environmental commitments, our social investments, or the strengthening within our corporate governance. What does all of this mean? TR will hopefully be around in another 50 years' time. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. And in order to start the formal process of the annual general meeting, if I can pass over to our chair, Jonathan Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Mark, and let me add my welcome. This is this year's AGM, so to see people in person for the first time in a few. I have pleasure in declaring the meeting open, and unless anyone objects, I propose that the notice convening the meeting be taken as read. This year, we're delighted to return to holding a physical meeting. In addition, we are live streaming the AGM via the Investor Meet Company platform in order that the AGM is accessible to as many shareholders as possible. Now to the formal business of the AGM. I will read each resolution for shareholders in the room to vote. In the absence of polling cards, we will be doing votes by show of hands. I'm going to rattle through as quickly as I dare, which will be a very quick for and against. If you can whip it up and down at the right point, that would help me massively. That's what happens when there's no script and I had to add the lid. Let's not do that twice. Unless anybody has any specific questions about the resolutions themselves, I propose that we have a time for questions at the end. So on to the resolutions. Resolution 1 is to consider the company's annual report, financial statements, and the reports of the directors and auditors for the year ended 31st of March 2022. If I can have votes for, please, and any votes against. Resolution 2, to approve the directors' remuneration report as contained in the annual report. If I can have votes for, please, and anything against. Resolution 3, to approve a final dividend of 1.4p. If I can have votes for, please. Votes against. For slide 4, I will hand over to Clive.
Resolution 4 is to re-elect Jonathan Shearman as a director. Those for? Those against? Thank you.
Thank you. I will carry on with resolutions 5 to 9. These are to re-elect the directors. Resolution 5 is to re-elect Mark Belton as director. Votes for, please. Any votes against? Resolution 7 is to re-elect Clive Watson. Votes for, please. Any votes against? Resolution 8 would have Scott McMeekan continue with us for a little while longer. Votes for, please. Votes against. And resolution 9 is to re-elect Claire Barnforth as a director. Votes for, please. Votes against. Great. Resolution 10, to reappoint BDO as auditor of the company. Votes for, please. Anybody to vote against? Resolution 11, to authorise the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditor. Votes for, please. Votes against. Resolution 12, to allow directors authority to allot shares. Votes for, please. Votes against. To the final few, moving to the special resolutions. Resolution 13 allows the directors to authority for disapplication of preemption rights. Votes for, please. Any votes against? Resolution 14 allows the directors authority for disapplication of preemption rights for an acquisition or capital investment. Votes for, please. Votes against. Resolution 15 to authorise the company to make market purchases of its own shares. Votes for, please. Votes against. And finally, resolution 16, that a general meeting other than an annual general meeting may be called on not less than 14 clear days' notice. Votes for, please. Votes against. For your information, the result of the proxy votes received in advance of today's meetings are shown here on the slide on the screen. The final results of the meeting will be available on our website later today. That concludes the formal business of our annual general meeting, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Having concluded the part of the annual general meeting, it's really now an opportunity for Q&A with the board, and the board are very happy to answer questions. We had no questions submitted in advance of the meeting. We do have some questions online as well, but if we can take questions from the room first, if there are any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, like all UK-based industrials, we've been hammered on the price. Has the board considered a defence policy in case of an approach for acquisition?
Yeah, one of the standing policies that we have is a defence policy, which has a series of metrics and responses to things. We have a couple of people who would help us with a Rule 3 defence, and both of those guys give us regular briefings, including what would be fair value on a number of different metrics. We last saw those numbers 6 weeks ago on our request that somebody dusts those off for us. So yeah, occupational hazard of being listed, you're for sale every day. And yeah, no, it's part of our duties to be able to respond to that if it came up.
Hostiles are out of fashion. So.
Yes.
Thanks, John.
Yes, please.
When I wrote this, I actually wrote Mr. Chairman, which shows you what an old fart I am. I suppose I should say chair. I'm all too well...
Or address it to Mark. Most questions.
I'm all too well aware that I'm old and things change in the business world. But before I ask a question, may I perhaps be permitted an observation from, shall we say, a shareholder touchline. For those who don't know, I'm David Tree. I've been a shareholder for decades. When I'm considering an investment in a company I don't know, I always consult its annual report to learn about its activities, its products, its management, its finances. I've read every TRIFAST report for decades. Sadly, I've now fallen out of love with doing so. Our company's annual report was once upon a time interesting and informative. It had lots of enlightening reports from and pictures of our global management and personnel, to whom indeed Mark paid tribute earlier. It had references to what we do and where we do it, with pictures of our amazingly diverse range of products. This document has none of these. There is an invitation on page 1 of the annual report from our chair. It is my pleasure to invite you to read more about the ongoing journey of delivering the potential that lies within TRIFAST. There it is, inside cover. I challenge anyone to get an understanding of our group and its activities from this document. We have legal responsibilities. I know there's 24 pages on sustainability, 21 pages on board remuneration, just 8 pages of financial review, and just 4 pages of CEO's review. It's virtually impossible to determine what we do where. The map on page 17 is the only real guide as to which countries we operate in, but nowhere is there any indication of what we make or distribute or how well we're doing it. We're not the NHS or the BBC, thank God, but when I read, and I stress this is no criticism of those individuals, that we now have a head of governance, a head of risk, a global director of quality. I'm beginning to wonder about our direction. In this whole document, there are just 2 minuscule pictures of products that this company makes and distributes. 2, and they're minuscule, I promise you. And the front page is one. Apart from various members of the board, there are no pictures at all of any of our personnel or their activities. This company has been built around nurturing its great people. But now I fear what we get is a kilogram, yes, over 2 pounds of wasted opportunity. I stress I do realise we have legal responsibilities to publish some of this crass corporate wokeism. But can we please humanise it and help people understand exactly what we do and why we're good at it? A while ago, and there was something very similar in the thing that Mark put up, there was a phrase that occurred in one of our presentations, holding the world together, or words, something like that. Mm-hmm. That is something that gave people the impression of what we do. You actually struggle to find the word fastenings in this thing. You really struggle. People will not know. People who come to this company from afresh will think, what the hell does this company do? I actually pity the poor devil that has to write all this. Perhaps I exaggerate to make my point, but I do hope some of my observation hits home. Thank you.
I think there is a lot of truth in that, David. There really is. The corporate governance is getting increasingly more stringent, absolutely. But yeah, and unfortunately, you have to follow many things, such as the sustainability, such as corporate governance. But I think I'd like to have a copy of your script, if I may, at the end of it, because one of the things that you've met Stuart, for example, our internal comms, we are looking at, I think we're all getting frustrated with the amount of pages we have to do to be a PLC company. And I think it's, we do need to start thinning things back. I'm sorry that you felt that there wasn't enough on people or products in there. I think people can sometimes just get too focused on doing what is required, and we'll take on board what you said. So I'd be very pleased to have your script and your observations.
It's available.
No, absolutely, because we want people to know that we are a people company still. Yeah. And we do make fasteners, by the way.
Sorry, if I can just add, I think this does the job admirably. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is, of course, coupled with a very up-to-date, smashing website, which is very easy to get on, and then you learn everything about the products and the club.
Thank you, Mike.
Just thought I'd say that, because the two go together hand in hand.
No, thank you.
Sorry, this is just a comment, not a question. I totally agree with the onslaught of corporate governance. It's now a big industry on its own. I will be retiring out of Discovery at the end of October, my last PLC role. I intend to try and start some sort of crusade against this madness. It's absolutely mad. At Discovery, a well-known institutional investor said they would not be voting for my reinstatement because our gender balance was only 27% on the board when it should be 33. And I'm thinking, I can't say the word. But anyway, basically what I'm saying is, I agree with David.
That sounds like 2 kilos.
Well, I was actually wondering whether this was our defence mechanism to throw any potential thought.
Can I ask if there's any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
A practical one. In the light of all the pressure we have on utilities at the moment, what steps are you taking, in the manufacturing side and the distribution side?
No, absolutely. We had put in a few solar panels into, obviously we had them in Italy. We've recently put them into the PCEP, a Malaysian acquisition. And so that is some of the practical aspects. We also sign up to Energy ESOS, which gives us practical saving initiatives as well, which we're rolling out across all of the locations which can be tailor-made individually to them. I think one of the things also is very much around, we are passing those prices on as well. And that's whether that's through a price increase or through surcharges. And they're conversations we're having with customers as we speak. Some obviously can be passed on immediately, others need negotiations with the customers, but that is certainly something that we're doing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I have 2 questions, which I can happily roll into one. I'm very conscious that we can't operate in every part of the world, but one of the biggest and most rapidly growing markets in the world is India. I know there are 3 dots on the map in India, but it'd be hard pushed to find out anything about what we're doing there. I wonder if you could elaborate on our activities and plans for India. And the second question is in a similar vein. As China hits ever-growing problems, Vietnam is grabbing endless opportunities to pick up business from companies moving out of China. Perhaps you could enlighten us as to how, if at all, we trade in Vietnam.
Yeah, so India is a big market for us. It is a big market. We trade predominantly through Singapore produce parts and it's then pushed into India. There's two aspects to India. Obviously, one is customers, and we are seeing an increase in business being transferred from the UK into India, as well as from some of our Asian sites into India. And as you know, we are very good at transferring business around the world. That is what makes us flexible and agile. We are able to go, if a customer wants to move to India or Outer Mongolia or wherever, we can do that and help them follow. Perhaps not Outer Mongolia just yet, but we do follow, and that is something we're in the process of doing at the moment. So customers are moving more so into India, and we are following them. What I'd also add, there's two prongs to this. You've got your customers and you've also got your suppliers. We are also expanding our supply base in India, partly because of some of the reliance on China and Taiwan. So we are moving supply base to India, which is closer to home. And this is part of the onshoring and nearshoring, and cuts out some of the freight costs, and the lead times are quicker as well. So it's not on everything. I mean, Taiwan is still a major hub for the fastening world, but it is something that we are looking at to support the future, basically. And with China, our sales is less than 5%, and it's not a huge market for us regarding supply. Taiwan is more where we get the fasteners from.
Vietnam?
Oh, Vietnam, that's right, just coming back on that. We, again, have supply base there, absolutely. That's been particularly in one of our subsidiaries, Lancaster Fasteners, in Morecambe. And again, that is where we're also looking at further suppliers in Vietnam, because it is an up-and-coming market, absolutely.
Mark, and I can continue. There's two questions that have come online of a similar theme that I think you could probably answer as well. First one is, how are things progressing with the expansion into the North American market?
Yeah.
And aligned with that, are what are our thoughts in the current market of making further acquisitions? And I wondered if you could perhaps pick up these two questions.
So firstly, in America, organically, we are seeing strong demand. It's the largest fastener market in the world. And as you guys know, our core strategy is working with global customers, and being able to get into sites and then being able to get into more of their sites around the world. The US is massive for us, and certainly from if we look at our Houston operation, there are plenty of global customers there that are transferring into that region, particularly in the automotive and particularly in the electric vehicle sector as well. We are supporting through tier ones the likes of Tesla, and that is going from strength to strength. And you know, it's also, we're looking at the battery technology, and we're working with several of the large battery companies that are going into the EV sector as well. And again, that's a further prong to us in driving the business forward there. If you're looking at TR Falcon now, again, that has gone from strength to strength. That is everything we thought it would be and continues to be. And again, so we are being able to put our global customers into TR Falcon, and it's a great opportunity for us to be able to get into that Carolina space. Likewise, they have customers there that we can take on board. There's a really good example where when we were negotiating on TR Falcon, one of their largest customers came on, and we had to do it for due diligence purposes, because you don't want to buy a company and one of their largest customers walks away tomorrow. So we sat down, and I was speaking to the procurement director of this company, and he was saying, well, we wanted Falcon to be a global supplier to us, basically around the world. And Giovanni, the MD, was looking at me with a smirk, and because he had said he knew in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, excuse me, hopefully this acquisition would have gone through. And now we have the ability to work with that customer to be able to not only supply in America, but also elsewhere in the world where they want us. So that's just an example of what we can do in America. From an acquisition point of view, we have advisors out there helping us find selective acquisitions. As I said, it's the largest fastener market in the world. And the opportunities are there for us to continue along that path. Absolutely.
Thank you. Fine. Well, thank you very much. I think there's no more further questions online, Jonathan. So if I could pass back to you.
Can indeed, Christopher. Thank you. So thank you to everybody for joining us today. That's the end of the semi-formal business. We hope to see you again next year. And please don't feel you need to rush away. There's food and drink for as many as would like to stay and have a chat.
That's great, Jonathan. And to the board of TriFast, thank you very much indeed for updating attendees online today. Can I please ask attendees online not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly appreciated by the company. On behalf of the board of TriFast PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting, and may I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon.